hold on. Stop. Put the phone down and actually listen to me right now, because Rihanna might have just done the ONE thing the most powerful machine in music spent 15 years making sure nobody ever did. She broke the silence. And according to every whisper crawling out of the industry's back hallways, the silence she broke has one name sitting on top of it. Beyonce. Not Jay-Z. Not Diddy. Beyonce. We're talking private meetings, camcorder tapes, and young rappers who vanished off the board one by one. And the Queen's castle? Reportedly shaking tonight. Beyonce's team really thought that silence was gonna protect them forever? Adorable. Real talk. If you felt the floor move just now, smash that like button and subscribe to Melanin Scope Media, because we chase the receipts everybody else is too scared to touch. Send this to that ONE friend who's been texting you about the Rihanna and Beyoncé Cold War for months. They need to see this. Here's the skeleton. Rubbin' Rihanna Fenty. Yes, The Rihanna is, per the street narrative, the source behind a slow drip leak campaign allegedly aimed at Beyoncé Knowles Carter, with whispers going nuclear across Twitter, YouTube, and gossip media through mid-2026. The alleged ammunition? Resurfaced on camera stories, DaBaby's Diddy party account, Freddy P's cheesecake claim, DJ Paul's hotel scene description, and Rihanna's own window story from her 2005 Def Jam audition. And the Carter camp's response to all this? Absolutely nothing. Which, if you know that playbook, is the loudest answer possible. Now let's open the vault and look at why the internet suddenly can't unsee this. Let's start with the rookie. On Club Shay Shay, DaBaby told the story himself, on camera, smiling the whole way through. He described being the hottest new name in rap, getting invited to a private gathering at Diddy's LA home, and watching Diddy personally clear the house until only about 15 people remained, 2 of them being Jay-Z and Beyonce. And then he dropped the line that the internet has been chewing on ever since. Beyonce came over and introduced herself to me, as if she had to. You're Beyonce, cut it out. When I first heard that, I was like, okay, cute fanboy moment, whatever. But watch the full clip. Every time DaBaby drifted toward the details of that room, who said what actually went down, the conversation got steered. And the man holding the steering wheel was Shannon Sharpe himself. Bro was sitting there with the biggest get in hip-hop media, and he tapped the brakes every single time the road got interesting. That's not an interview. That's traffic control. Now the cheesecake. Freddy P from DA Band went on The Art of Dialogue and rewrote one of the most famous scenes in reality TV history, the Making the Band Cheesecake Walk. 20 years we all laughed at Diddy humiliating those kids for a dessert run across Manhattan. Then Freddy P said the cheesecake was never for Diddy. His account, Diddy told the boys to take that cheesecake upstairs to Beyonce. SHE was allegedly in the building the whole time. I had to rewind that clip twice, brew. One of the most mocked power moves in hip-hop television history, and the alleged final destination was a woman who wasn't even on the show? If that's true, and again, it's one man's account, that's not a funny story anymore. That's documentation of a working relationship nobody was supposed to see. Then there's DJ Paul of 3-6 Mafia, who saw the scene in Pimp C's hotel room with his own eyes and described it publicly. Pimp was found kneeling, in a praying position, with blood around him. Paul's words were like he was shot. The official cause was sleep apnea complicated by codeine. Tragedy. Case closed. But when the man who found the body says the scene looked nothing like a peaceful passing, man, that detail has never stopped haunting people. I'm not saying what it means. I'm saying the man who was there said what he said. And the fourth receipt is Rihanna herself. On the Tyra Banks show back in 2005, a teenage Rihanna told the story of auditioning for Jay-Z at Def Jam, in his office, at around 3 a.m. Her words, he told her there were 2 ways out, either through the door with the deal signed, or through this window, and we're on the 29th floor. The audience laughed. Tyra laughed. Go watch that clip today, and tell me what's funny about a grown mogul telling a 16-year-old girl there's a window option at 3 in the morning. I'll wait. 4 people. 4 cameras. 4 stories nobody ever laid side by side. Until now. Now connect the dots, because the sequence is where this thing goes from gossip to architecture. That DaBaby interview? It dropped right as Diddy's world was starting to catch fire publicly, meaning a rookie rapper sat in front of millions and casually placed Jay-Z and Beyoncé inside a room at a Diddy gathering at the exact moment being in ANY Diddy room became radioactive. And y'all didn't notice this though. The clip went viral, got clipped up, memed to death, and the parts about what happened after the crowd left quietly never followed up on anywhere by anybody. That's not an accident. That's a lane getting closed. That cheesecake story? Freddy P didn't tell it in 2003. He told it after the Diddy indictments started dropping. 2 decades of silence, and the truth about who was allegedly upstairs only came out when the host of that party stopped being untouchable. Ask yourself why. Fear has an expiration date, and apparently it expires when federal charges hit the timeline. Now the Pimp C thread. This is the one that makes people's voices drop. The rumor the streets have carried for years goes like this. Mid-2000s, Pimp C, legend out of Port Arthur, half of UGK, allegedly had camcorder footage involving himself and a famous R&B singer. And depending on which version of the whisper you hear, that singer was Beyonce. A Houston insider later said on record that if he'd ever gotten that tape, he'd be a billionaire because TMZ would have paid a fortune for it. He never got it. Nobody did. And here's the part that turns the stomach. Shortly afterward allegedly got back that the tape might surface. Pimp C was gone. December 4th, 2007, a hotel room in Los Angeles. The coroner's paperwork says natural causes. But the Whisper Network has never once closed that file. And the timeline detail people keep choking on. Before his death, Pimp C allegedly had open friction with Jay-Z. There's an account from people in the room. UGK's camp took a meeting with Rockefeller. Dame Dash reportedly opened his checkbook and wrote $1 million check on the spot, and when the manager called Pimp C live to tell him the offer, Pimp delivered one of the coldest lines in rap history. Tell them to take that check and give it to Tupac's mama. $1 million. Refused. Live on the phone. With a verbal shot aimed straight at Sean Carter's empire. Months later, the man who said it was dead. Coincidence? Almost certainly. The paperwork says so. But you understand now why. When Rihanna allegedly started connecting names and dates, this was one of the first chapters the streets pulled off the shelf. Then Mos Def. No death, no tape, no crime scene. Just an artist named Sif Sounds once describing a weekend around Destiny's Child where he couldn't help noticing how unusually close Beyonce and Mos Def appeared to be. One observation. One whisper. And then, Mos Def's momentum quietly dissolved. Different city, different decade, same shape. The conspiracy corners of the internet keep drawing it. Anyone whose name got tangled with Beyonce seemed to exit the story diminished. The legend in a casket. The thinker whose orbit drifted. The rookie whose interview got steered off the cliff's edge. Pattern or pareidolia. That's your call. But belief doesn't need proof to move. And right now, belief is moving fast. Now check this out. Because nobody's dissecting the small stuff. And the small stuff is where the bodies are buried in this story. Zoom into one word from the cheesecake account, upstairs. Freddy P didn't say a car, didn't say a hotel, didn't say send it to her people. Upstairs. Meaning she was allegedly in the building while Diddy was running psychological warfare on a bunch of exhausted kids on national television. If that account is accurate, Beyonce wasn't hearing about Diddy's methods secondhand over brunch. She was allegedly present inside the machine while it ran. That one word moves her from the audience to the building. And her fans didn't catch that? That's embarrassing. Now the DaBaby clip. Freeze it. Watch what Shannon Sharpe does with his body every time the story drifts toward the room's details. Lean in on the fluff, redirect on the substance. That's textbook host protection, but protecting WHO? Not DaBaby. He was the guest. Guests get exposed all the time. The claim floating through the Whisper Network is that Shannon had business relationships orbiting the Jay-Z and Beyoncé universe, deals he was allegedly trying to protect. Proven? No. But watch the tape, and tell me the steering isn't there. And Beyoncé's people really thought nobody would freeze frame a podcast? In this economy of attention? Third layer, the window story. Everybody focuses on the window. I want you to focus on the time. 3 a.m. Rihanna said it herself, on camera, more than once. A teenage girl, a high-rise office, almost nobody around, and the negotiation tactic on the table was allegedly a joke about the 29th floor. Here's the forensic question nobody asks. Who else was in that building at 3 a.m.? Because a Def Jam president doesn't do solo auditions at 3 in the morning with zero staff unless the situation is deliberately unwitnessed. I'm not filling in that blank. The internet has spent 15 years filling it in. I'm just telling you the blank exists. And the fourth pattern, watch the timeline shape across all three men. DaBaby touches the story. Career momentum goes sideways within the year for unrelated reasons. Mos Def, proximity whisper, orbit quietly dissolves. Pimp C, tape rumor, then a hotel room. I'm not drawing the line. The internet drew it years ago. I'm just holding up the connect the dots page and asking why every dot keeps landing in the same shape. And the Carter machine really never noticed the pattern the whole internet can see? They noticed. They counted on you not noticing. Now let's see how the media handled all this, because the framing tells its own story. Complex covered the cheesecake revelation straight. They reported Freddy P's claim, attributed it cleanly, kept alleges in every sentence, and let the quote do the damage. Respectable. But notice what they didn't do. Zero follow-up on the upstairs detail, zero timeline mapping, zero attempt to ask why a woman with no role on the show was allegedly the destination of its most infamous humiliation ritual. They printed the receipt and walked away from the register. Then look at how the Jaguar Wright situation got framed. When she stood in front of Piers Morgan and claimed Beyonce had skeletons, the Hollywood Reporter's coverage centered on the aftermath, Morgan apologizing on air after Jay-Z and Beyonce's lawyers contacted him, calling the claims totally false with no basis in fact. Now hold on. I'm not saying Wright proved anything. She didn't, and I told you I'd keep the lanes marked. But look at the energy of the response. Lawyers. Same week. Public retraction secured and broadcast. For a claim with no basis in fact, that is an awful lot of legal horsepower. You don't send the cavalry to kill a mosquito. That framing, the apology as the story, not the allegation as the story, is what narrative control looks like when it's working perfectly. And the Rihanna window clip? When it resurfaced, outlets like EV covered it as a quirky throwback. Jay-Z joked about throwing her out the window. Joked. That's the framing. A 3 a.m. pressure play on a 16-year-old gets filed under cute origin story trivia, and everybody moves on. Meanwhile, the corners of the internet that actually sat with the clip treated it like a confession hiding in plain sight. Same footage. Two completely different realities. Now the counter-narrative, because some people are saying this whole thing is the internet doing what it always does, building a villain out of a woman's silence. And honestly, that's the strongest defense Beyonce's side has, and I get it. Patterns can be pareidolia. Coincidences stack. The human brain connects stars into shapes that were never there. But here's why that doesn't fully hold up. The defense requires you to believe that 4 separate on-camera accounts, DaBaby's, Freddy P's, DJ Paul's, Rihanna's own, all independently pointing in the same direction, mean nothing. That the lawyer mobilization against Piers Morgan was routine. That the hive going quiet right now is a scheduling conflict. At some point coincidence becomes a full-time job. And the people defending the queen hardest? They are the same ones who told you the cheesecake story was just a joke for 20 years. The receipts don't lie. People protecting empires do. Something about this whole thing feels OFF. And I don't mean the rumors, I mean the reaction. Because here's what nobody wants to say out loud. This was never really about tapes or cheesecake or even Diddy. Strip all of that away, and what's left is a psychological war 20 years in the making. And the weapon isn't a diss track. It's betrayal, BY silence. Think about the architecture here. The theory driving this entire moment. And I'm telling you straight, it's a theory, unproven, denied, zero courtroom evidence behind it. Goes like this. Whatever a teenage Rihanna endured coming up in that building, she allegedly believes Beyonce saw it, knew it, could have thrown a rope. And instead, for the street narrative, Beyonce sat perfectly still, protected the brand, protected the marriage, and let a teenage girl carry the weight alone. Not jealousy, not chart positions. Not some invented catfight for the blogs. The idea that the ONE woman in the building who understood exactly what that office felt like at 3 in the morning chose the cathedral over the girl. And that's the part that should terrify the Carter machine, because you can't lawyer your way out of that narrative. Cease and desist work on Jaguar Wright. They don't work on a feeling. You can't sue the internet for believing that silence is a confession. Every legal letter they send just proves the silence is guarded, and a guarded silence reads exactly like a kept secret. Beyoncé's team is playing checkers with lawyers while Rihanna, allegedly, is playing chess with timing. Look at the psychological profile of the alleged campaign. No statement. No interview. No name ever named. Just receipts, surfacing one drop at a time, from directions nobody can trace. That's not a beef, man. That's a masterclass. Beef is loud. Beef is sloppy. Beef gets you memed and forgotten in 2 weeks. What's allegedly happening here is surgical, deniable at every step, devastating at every drop. And it exploits the one structural weakness in Beyoncé's entire empire. Her armor only works against attacks she can identify. Silence beats noise. But silence versus silence, that's a mirror fight. And in a mirror fight, the person who moves first loses, which means Beyoncé is trapped inside her own greatest weapon. And let's be honest about the authenticity angle, because this is where I stop buying the official narrative completely. The brand is perfection, discipline, untouchability, 30 years of spotless. But real talk, nobody gets 30 spotless years in that industry without the industry agreeing to look away. The same machine that allegedly steered Shannon's interview, that buried the cheesecake destination for 2 decades, that filed a 3 a.m. window joke under cute trivia. That machine didn't protect Beyoncé because she's magic. It protected her because she's profitable. That's the uncomfortable truth. The queen isn't beyond criticism. The queen is beyond convenience to criticize. And the moment the math changes, the moment protecting her costs more than she generates, watch how fast 30 years of silence becomes 30 years of depositions. And the Hive? The most disciplined fan army in music history? Where are they? The replies under these stories are graveyard. One viral comment said it best. She's very good at playing innocent, but anyone with real discernment can see the lifestyle doesn't match the act. Another one twisted the knife. The Hive calls are infallible. So where is the Hive now? It's mighty quiet in here. A defense force that doesn't show up is telling you something about its confidence. Maybe they are regrouping. Maybe the marching orders changed. Or maybe, and this is the read spreading fastest, even the most loyal soldiers are waiting to see whether the tape rumors have teeth before they die on this hill. Your queen's army is doing reconnaissance on its own queen. Sit with that. And that's the truth they won't package for you. This isn't a scandal about what Beyoncé allegedly did. It's a referendum on what she allegedly watched. Doing wrong is survivable in this culture. This culture forgives monsters with hits. But standing still while someone drowns, when you were the only other person who knew the water was deep, the culture doesn't have a forgiveness mechanism for that. It only has a verdict. Now watch what happens next, because the silence right now is the scary part. Everything feels calm, and that's exactly when this board gets rearranged. First path, and it's the coldest one, the album. Rihanna has been sitting on music for years. Every interview she deflects, laughs it off, points at her kids, her brands, anywhere but the record. And the theory gaining ground says when that album finally lands, it won't be a comeback, it'll be a confession. Coded verses, timestamps, subliminals. Artists at that altitude don't write diss tracks, they write documentaries with drums on them. If a single bar references windows, floors, cheesecake, or cathedrals, the entire planet will know exactly what it's hearing. And Beyoncé's team will spend that whole week reading lyric annotations like court filings. They are not ready for an album they can't subpoena. Second path. The husband moves first. Because here's what's coming whether anybody likes it or not. If the whispers get loud enough to touch the money, the speculation says Sean Carter does what Sean Carter has always done, protects the empire first and sorts the casualties later. Here's the connective tissue of this entire saga. The man who signed Rihanna, married Beyoncé, partied with Diddy. When the pressure hits the boardroom level, he's gonna have to pick which half of the building to save, the wife or the protege. The streets are split right down the middle on which way he breaks, and both halves are loud. Whatever he chooses, somebody's 30-year story is gonna get edited, and edits like that never stay quiet. Third path, the culture shift nobody's pricing in. This ain't even just about 2 women anymore. Watch the next generation of fans. They don't inherit loyalty. They inherit receipts. The Hive's whole defense system was built for an era where silence meant strength and brands controlled the narrative. That era is dying in real time. When the next unproven whisper drops, and it will drop, it's gonna land in an ecosystem that's already been trained to connect these dots. Beyoncé can outlast a news cycle. She's done it 100 times. But she can't outlast a generation that grew up reading this story as fact-adjacent folklore. 5 years from now, people might look back at this exact moment as the week the cathedral walls started showing cracks, not from one blow, but from 1,000 tiny leaks nobody ever traced. Whatever happens, one thing's clear. Silence was the empire's greatest weapon, and somebody just figured out how to use it against them. Now it's your turn, because I'm genuinely down in those comments reading every single one. Do you believe Rihanna is really the one feeding these stories to the timeline, or is the internet building a villain out of a woman's silence? Does the Pimp C tape rumor have anything behind it, or is it a ghost story the culture refuses to bury? And the big one, if that album finally drops with coded shots at a queen, are we calling it art or calling it war? Sharpest takes get pinned. If this breakdown earned it, hit like, subscribe to Melanin Media, and share it with that friend who still thinks the cheesecake story was a joke. And listen, this story is nowhere near over. There's a second layer. The 72 hours after that Diddy gathering, the phone call that reportedly changed DaBaby's trajectory, and the ONE name from that original 15-person room nobody has dared to say on camera yet. That's the next video. And once you hear who else was in that room, you'll never hear a Beyoncé song the same way again. Neither will she.